Hey everyone, it's Alyssa, and today I felt the need to actually talk about M. Night Shyamalan's Old. And it's not because I think this is the worst movie, and I've seen so many reviews where people either they love it or they hate it, and I genuinely am somewhere in the middle. But at the same time, the more I keep thinking about this, and I saw it 2 days ago, the more it's making me angry because some of the choices that could have been made might have made this one of my favorite movies of the year. And so it's just one of those movies where it feels like what could have been and the type of story this could have been. But I just feel like he goes back on some of his old devices and here's this big twist and here's how this connects to this. And it feels really false and it takes away from what I think is the genuine meaning of the story. So the first part of this will just be a non-spoiler review. So if you didn't see the movie yet, you could see it in some movie theaters, but also I know it's coming out streaming sometime in October. I then need to just get into the spoilers so I can give an analysis and talk about things that I think would have worked a lot better in the film and would have made this, to me, a maybe not a bigger success in terms of financials, but would have made this more of an interesting film and an interesting story. So I mean, you can see from the trailer, and this is one of my main problems with this movie, what the entire plot is. So it's a group of people, they go to this resort, they are brought to this secluded beach, and this is like a really beautiful spot that not a lot of people know about. But when they get to the beach, soon enough, they find a body, which you see in the trailer, and then you see the children of certain family members start aging rapidly, which you also see in the trailer. And all of a sudden, they realize we're all aging incredibly rapidly. And it's sort of the mystery of what's going on at this beach, and the types of people that have been brought to the beach, and then what they all have in common with each other. And the whole movie, you're trying to figure that out. Now, part of the problem is because it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, you just are spending a lot of time thinking about, oh, this is going to be the ending. This clue connects to this, connects to this. And if you're paying attention in the beginning, it really is spelled out for you, and there aren't that many surprises. And so what took away from this movie is the fact that I felt like I knew everything that was going on in the movie. So say around 45 minutes in, I felt like I could have walked into this movie based on seeing the trailer and have just picked up with everything that was going on, and I wouldn't have been confused at all. Now, there are parts of this movie that I thought were really entertaining, especially in sort of the middle section of the film. And so it wasn't like I was watching this movie and I thought, oh, I'm really bored or I need to check my phone. That that didn't happen. But I also just kept thinking, all right, I feel like this connects to this, and everything felt like something I've seen already. And I do feel like that is mainly from the trailer. And everything in me just wishes you could have set the trailer up and just said, okay, this is a family. They are on a resort. They go to this beach and something crazy happens. And it's happening to all these people who go to this beach, but you don't see what happens. Now, you would obviously have to change the title because everyone would figure it out. But you could not even change the title and keep the original name of the graphic novel, which is called Sandcastle, which I think would have been a lot more intriguing. And then you would want to know, okay, what is it that's happening on this particular beach? And then you might be thinking of how it connects to Sandcastle. And it would just be that much more of a mystery. And a lot of the cinematography was interesting. And he shot it in a way I hadn't really seen him shoot before. You get a lot of just like pieces of a person's face, or you're shooting, say, from behind their head, but you're only seeing like half of their head. And there was a lot of empty space. And I felt like all of that would have built a lot of tension if you didn't know that they were getting older, because it was all of the shots were trying to not show you, especially when the little kids who are like 6 years old turns into someone who is clearly much older than 6 years old. He's using a lot of camera techniques to make you not see the kid's face. And so it takes a little bit before you get that reveal, but I already know what the reveal is before because you showed me everything in the trailer. And I understand you want to kind of promote, oh, Alex Wolff is in this, Thomasin McKenzie is in this, and you need to show that those actors are there. But I also think you could have done it in a way where you didn't show they were the same people as the kids from earlier. And you still would have had, not that they're major movie stars, but I think people, especially if you like horror, Hereditary, you would see Alex Wolff and say, okay, I want to see this. If you loved Phantom Thread, you would see Vicky Krieps and you'd be like, oh, I want to see this. So, I mean, there were definitely enough stars, maybe they're not movie stars, but enough people that I think film goers would recognize that they would want to see this movie. And the performances were interesting because they teetered to me almost like I was watching a Yorgos Lanthimos movie in that they're a little bit cold and detached, and that's sort of the way that everyone is speaking in the movie, in this sort of cold, detached way. And I thought that was fine, but maybe a little unexpected from Shyamalan because he doesn't usually direct that way. So maybe he didn't go quite far enough in terms of directing the actors in that way. They just felt maybe a little cold and detached, which did contribute to the story and I think what the ultimate point of the story was trying to say. And without giving any spoilers, I felt like if they had taken that middle section of the film, expanded that, focused on that, and not been so concerned with this being a scary movie, because this is not a scary movie. Even though this is marketed as horror, I did not find any horror in this movie except for maybe one scene with one person that was maybe a little scary if you've never seen a horror movie before. But there were moments, it was more mystery, what's going on, what's happening. The way it was shot was definitely trying to build tension. But once again, there is no tension if I know what's going on. So there were just a lot of mistakes in the way this was marketed as well. And I just found myself not being very surprised by anything. And, you know, the chemistry between the actors, they were all okay. I guess that's what happens when you have a bunch of different groups that don't really have anything in common except this one thing in common, which you find out pretty early on in the film. You see what links all of these people together. And some of them just felt like sort of caricatures. Like there was one character who was a psychologist, and every other word out of her mouth was just like, how are you feeling right now? Like, dude, like, oh, almost like, what's your mindset? And it just got distracting because it sort of felt generic and weird. And some of the dialogue just felt totally meaningless to me. And it was almost a movie that would have been better suited with less dialogue with what the movie was about. And so, not saying what the twist was, I found the twist to be one, pretty predictable, especially if you've seen a lot of his movies before. And I like M. Night Shyamalan. I'm not someone who's going to just say his movies are awful. They're not all the best. And I've never seen The Last Airbender because I've just heard so many terrible things about it. But I almost always am going to see his movies. And whether they are good or bad or somewhere in the middle, they're usually entertaining and they get you thinking in some sort of a way. I just found myself thinking about all of the things I would change with this movie instead of, wow, what a good idea for a movie this was. And so I'm going to switch now and say this is a movie that I think people should watch because it's different. It's not an IP. Yes, it comes from a graphic novel, but I don't think many people would have read this graphic novel. And the concept, and that's the thing I really want to emphasize, the concept of this movie is, to me, very interesting and very cool. And it definitely hooked me in. And I saw this trailer when I saw Quiet Place 2, and I was like, yeah, this actually looks good. But there was just, I knew so much going into it. There weren't really any shifts in like what was going on in the story. And like I said, that ending is just, it's basically like M. Night Shyamalan took a lot of his different endings. Like, here, let's take a little from Signs. Let's take a little from like The Sixth Sense. Like, let's take all of these tricks that I've used in the past, and now we're gonna smash them together into the ending of this. And I would say, if I was gonna pull out what are the two movies that are closest to this, it would definitely be The Happening, for sure, and there a lot of some aspects of Signs, especially that ending. I felt like, oh, it's like a mix of Signs and The Happening, which is weird because Signs is, I think a lot of people like that movie, whereas definitely The Happening. This is better than that. I will say that. This is better than The Happening. So I'm going to end it there in terms of the non-spoiler section and say it's worth watching just to see his filmography. I do like the way it's shot. I love the sort of the saturated color palette. It was a very pretty movie to watch. But don't get your hopes up too much with this one, in my opinion. And some people I've seen absolutely love this and they love the twist. So I'm going to get into spoilers, say what happens in the end, and say how I think they should have just gone with what the book was, because the book ending is just so much better and more meaningful, in my opinion. So spoilers. The end of this movie is like Signs in the way that Alex Wolff's character earlier on is friends with this little boy who is at the resort that they're at. The little boy knows that something's going on with his uncle. Certain people never seem to stick around at this resort for very long. He doesn't have friends. And so it's like right from the beginning, you're tipped off that something's going to happen. And so they have this special little decoder way of speaking to each other. And so the little boy uses their special language to basically tell Alex Wolff's character, in a note that he finds in a basket in the food that the resort gave to them, saying to stay by the coral, and that's how you get off the beach, because you can't get off the beach because the beach is aging you so quickly, and you just get kind of, you black out and you end up back on the beach, anyone who tries to get out. But if you go to this coral section, you can actually get out. Now, they don't really say why this beach is aging people. It's just aging people because of the rock formations and the way everything is. And it's nature trying to help us in some way, is what this pharmacy company thinks. So the resort is ran by this pharmacy company that's doing testing, and they want to test their medication. And so instead of waiting years and years and years for tests to see if medication works, they pull in people who have certain disorders, and it's like, well, let's see if we can cure Alzheimer's, let's see if we can cure seizures, let's see. And so then they're basically using these people, and all these people are dying who have these health conditions, so that they can have a better future, the world can have a better future, and they can create these drugs more quickly in the future. And to me, everything about this was just like stupid, because it didn't make sense. Like, obviously, I will go with sci-fi, anything sci-fi. If you give me rules and those rules make sense, I will always follow it along. I thought it was an easy way to get off the island, to say, like, for some reason the coral is absorbing the energy, I don't know, but something's happening with the coral and it's sort of protecting them from aging, and so if they go there, they're okay. And they basically have only 24 hours to do this, or they die. And so what made no sense is, first of all, you would never get these drugs approved, because you'd be like, well, how do you know these drugs worked? Well, we just know. Well, no, you need to show studies. Well, we just know. And then obviously this would be uncovered. Like, if you were killing people and there was this area and it was 20, like they were aging within 24 hours, it would have been found out. But what made me laugh and cringe all at the same time is that you would think, if this whole operation is going on and it's so incredibly illegal, they would be very aware of their security. But yet, when the brother and sister, who are the only people who live at the end of the movie, when they get back, they just find a cop who the little boy, met at the beginning of the movie. And this one cop takes down the entire operation. And this happens within like 10 minutes. What is happening? Why would one person be able to take this down? Why is there no security? Why are they just accepting that this whole thing they built up is over? They killed so many people. Why wouldn't they just kill this cop and this brother and this sister and then be over and let it be over with and just keep doing their very weird experiments? It was just so illogical in the end of the movie. And I know maybe that's, who cares? It's not the point. It's like, oh, here's the twist and here's the happy ending. But you could have just even ended the movie where he's not a little boy anymore, but the older man goes up to the cop and goes, "You're a cop." Boom, cut, done. That wouldn't have been great, but you wouldn't have given me all that extra that made me literally question the reality of everything that was going on. It was just really bizarre. But here's where it really upset me. The end of the book was just so much better. It's basically, they don't find out what's going on this beach. They all get older and they all die. And the only person who's left, who's still aging, is a baby who was born on the beach. So that's one of the major changes that he makes, where earlier, where you see Alex Wolff and Eliza Scanlon, when they're teenagers, they have a baby. It's like in 15 minutes, the baby is born, and then the baby dies right away. And they're like, well, the aging and what it is, the baby could never survive this. And I just thought that was such an odd cop-out. And one character in the background says, oh, we let the baby was on the floor on the beach for a minute, and a minute would have been however many months, whatever it is. And so the baby died of loneliness. And it's like, okay, but time's not moving like that for you guys. You're aging at a very fast rate. And their mind is maturing in some kind of way. But first of all, why did you leave the baby on the ground for a full minute? That didn't make sense. But I just didn't understand why the baby would pass away. It felt like you're using it for horror, whereas in the actual story, that baby survives and is the last person on the beach and is now an adult making a sandcastle. And what the movie felt like in the middle was this great allegory about just life, like looking at life in one day, and sort of the idea that our lives go by so quickly. And when you sort of zoom out and you look at the history of everything, it almost is like we only live for 24 hours. And you see the characters go through those certain beats that you expect in people's lives. Like you see the husband and wife. So Vicky Krieps and Gael Garcia Bernal, she was cheating on him, and then they'll be fighting about things, and they get older and they're like, what are we fighting about? Like, why can't we just enjoy this beach? And why can't we sit here and enjoy each other? And those were the moments in this movie that I liked the most, because it felt real and it felt genuine. And that idea of, why are we even fighting? Why we just need to appreciate what we have right now and be with each other. And I liked that aspect of kind of condensing a life into 24 hours and having this kind of existential question of like the meaning of family, the meaning of friends, appreciating, sort of nature and beauty around you and connections that you have with other people. And let's have us kind of look inward in ourselves and say, are we always wishing our lives away? And are we trying to move things so quickly? And, I can find myself guilty of it too, where it's just, well, I just need to get through the week because I need to get home, because I need to get to the weekend, and it's like, no, slow things down and appreciate things that you have around you, which is a really basic lesson. And it's very simple, but it's very beautiful. And I think it's something that we could also use right now, especially during this particular time. That is sort of a message of, these people are on this isolated beach. Also, that was interesting. I found out they filmed this during COVID, which this is the perfect story for that because there are so few characters. But it enveloped you in sort of like the importance of relationships and not worrying about silly things like how do I look or fights that people could get over or am I not happy in my life? Like they couldn't question any of those things because time was just going by so quickly, and they just ended up at a point appreciating everything. And I thought that sort of beauty could have been what this whole movie was. And it could have been a lot of sort of like tension in the beginning and what's going on. And the thing is, we don't know. Like, we don't know a lot of what's going on in life. So why would you get the answer at the end of this movie, what's going on at this beach? I like the idea of this being this kind of ambiguous ending of, well, it could be experiments or it could be a half a dozen other things. It doesn't matter because maybe we're just wasting our time trying to figure it out. So this could have been meditative, beautiful, but still thrilling, thought-provoking. But instead, he's just so worried about the twist. And I feel like for M. Night Shyamalan, it would have been braver to just not do a twist and just give us sort of a beautiful ending. And it was just disappointing. And the more I thought about that, and the more I thought about, well, the source material got it right. Why wouldn't you just follow the source material? It just made me more and more angry. And I felt like I needed to share it and say it to someone and see if anyone else felt this way, because it wasn't, I keep seeing this movie either getting trashed or really praised. And I don't really know if it deserves either. But I would love to hear what all of you think in terms of what's going on. There were also a lot of just like silly things that I thought were maybe unnecessary, like the vain wife who was getting older and older and older, the actress who was in Mad Max Fury Road, and she had a calcium deficiency. And I felt like he was trying to put a lot of different messages in there, and I think it would have been better to just sort of focus on the basics. And the one thing I did like was the Rufus Sewell character who has Alzheimer's and how that is affecting him at this very rapid rate, and how that sort of mental disorder, but then combined with people who have physical disorders, was sort of interesting. But I liked that it's like, oh, in one shot, you could see all of the terrible things that could happen in your life, but then also all of the beautiful things that could happen in your life. And once again, if the child was, made to stay alive, that would have just represented one of the beautiful things that you could have in your life. But I felt like, oh, nope, you have to make it horror and you have to kill the child, even though the kid didn't die in the story. So I would love to hear what all of you guys think, because I'm just going to keep talking about this in a loop in my head forever. And I would prefer to actually have a conversation with a person. So please leave any comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And I will talk to everyone later. Bye, guys.